In the most holy name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, we give praise and thanks to Allah for His mercy, His blessings upon us. We thank Him for coming to us alone in the person of Master Fard Muhammad, to whom praise is due forever. We thank Master Fard Muhammad for raising in our midst the promised Messiah and predicted Christ, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. And we thank them both for their manifestation of divine mercy in our midst. Our beloved leader and teacher, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, the national representative of the eternal leader of the Nation of Islam. I greet my beloved brothers and sisters here in Chicago, all over the country and around this earth. Assalamu alaikum. Brothers and sisters, it is such a great blessing to be alive 31 years after Minister Farrakhan began dictating the self-improvement course. Many of you were not here then, and we have many young believers that weren't even born. Because if you're under the age of 31, you weren't even born at that time. And so it is a manifestation of the mercy of Allah that we now have the opportunity to go through this divine revelation to us from Allah and His Christ through the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. We know that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan in September of 1985 had a vision-like experience on the wheel. And I'm not up here to lecture tonight. I just wanted to take our mind to that event, and we will go through that more as we go through this study. But we have got at this point to evolve to a more advanced level of thinking in order to keep up with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, at least at a sufficient pace not to lose sight of him, that we may be saved. When he had that vision-like experience, it was sandwiched between two monumental events. The first was the lecture or message that he gave in Los Angeles, California, several days before the vision-like experience, which I think was on the 17th, was the vision-like experience. And it was on the 13th or 14th, the 14th, thank you, Brother Sultan, that he spoke in Los Angeles to 19,000 black people. At that time, the largest gathering of black people to hear the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in the history of the Nation of Islam. He did this having introduced a new economic program for our self-sufficiency. Now, in 1984, when Reverend Jesse Jackson stood up to run for the presidency of the United States and was assaulted by Jewish leadership, his life threatened, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan stood with the Fruit of Islam to protect Reverend Jesse Jackson. Minister Farrakhan then came under the light of Jewish leadership, the most powerful and wealthy and well-armed nation on earth, the United States, which they control. And so when Minister Farrakhan began this economic program with the assistance of our Muslim brother Muammar Gaddafi in Libya, it brought down the wrath of Jewish leadership. Minister Farrakhan, nevertheless, went out to Los Angeles, California, even though the Jews did everything they could to impede him. He delivered that message to a packed audience, 19,000 black people. And that night, he stated that black people are the chosen of God. It was never this claim that he called Judaism a gutter religion, which he did not do. And if he did, we wouldn't care 2 cents about repeating it. It is the fact that he declared black people the chosen of God that enraged him. He left Los Angeles. He went to Mexico, where he had the vision-like experience. During that experience, his mind was downloaded from the wheel. He went on, and we can read of this, particularly in the time and what must be done. You can either read or you can watch the broadcast, but I'm moving fast. He went to New York City after leaving the West Coast. Oh, I meant to say west of the Mississippi when I said 19,000 was the largest gathering, because he addressed more than 70,000 at Randall Island in New York, while the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was present among us, but west of the Mississippi. Thank you for that. He went on from Mexico to Phoenix to New York City. Ground zero. The Jews controlled the West Coast, the media and Hollywood industry, and on the East Coast, the financial center of the world. They launched the most intense propaganda campaign against one single individual in U.S. history to try to shut down the minister's scheduled event at Madison Square Garden. On October 7th, the birth anniversary of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, black people poured out of Harlem. They poured in from Brooklyn, Queens, Bronx, surrounding areas. They packed Madison Square Garden. 25,000 inside, another 25 or 30,000 outside who could not get in. And he delivered his message, power at last, forever, introducing the economic rebirth of the black nation. He left New York City. Instead of celebrating and taking a vacation or resting, he came back to Chicago, Illinois, to 79th and Halsted, 79th and Emerald, to the Final Call building, which at that time was the headquarters of the Nation of Islam. And he delivered a message that I am recommending we all listen to, and we'll post it on the website, called Cycles of Life. Cycles of Life. Watch and listen to that lecture as you prepare for next week. So, brothers and sisters, December 12, 1986, he began dictating to me what you have in front of you, which is volume 1 of Self-Improvement, the Basis for Community Development. There are 2 more volumes. They're ready to go. But we're taking this not, we don't want to move too fast, but we can't move too slow because we have a short window of time. In January of 1987, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan warned us in an editorial in the Final Call newspaper not to allow anything to get between us and this study. We will go over that editorial next Friday night as a precursor to going into study guide number 1, which will start next week. 30 years later, this is 2017, I implore us tonight, we must not let anything or anyone get between us and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. I am talking about the individual you and I. Because without the improvement of self, there can be no community development. His introductory letter declares this to be a process of resurrection. If there is a resurrection, beloved, taking place, then there must have been a death. It is undeniable that after the departure of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad in 1975, the Nation of Islam was completely dismantled. The character of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad was assaulted. His morality was attacked. And as a result of that, he was stripped of his messengership. The nation was dismantled. Our way of devotion, his teachings, were taken apart. And when the messengership of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad was taken, that means Allah, God, in the person of Master Farid Muhammad, was denied, and that meant death to us all, including those of us who weren't even there, those not even born, because it was a spiritual death to be followed by an untimely physical death. No matter who we are, no matter what credentials we possess, no matter what our relationships are, no matter how old or young we are, no matter if we are male or female, wealthy or struggling, none of us could know today the reality of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad's escape from death, could know that he lives today, were it not for the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. All praise is due to Allah. Because, beloved, even though there may have been a few at that time with knowledge, there may have been a few with faith, none of them had the juice, none of them had the attracting power to transmit divine life to a dead nation. There are countless stars in the sky, but only one is empowered by the unseen hand of the originator to give life, light, and heat to the 9 planets. And that star is called the sun. It is a star without equal. And that is precisely what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said Minister Farrakhan is. Therefore, if we disconnect from him, I'm talking about Minister Farrakhan, if we disconnect from him, if we unplug from him, it is lights out. It is incumbent upon me and you to undergo this process of resurrection that we may become capable of uniting with one another. As I close, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan stated over the airwaves to all of our people, in the will of God, part 3, which is in your study, delivered November 9th, 1986, quote, if Allah God is going to make all things new, he has to make a people. He has to take a people and make them new. He is not going to do it easily. He is going to do it as the originator did it. in the beginning. He took nothing and created something. At the end of the world, Allah, God, takes a foolish people, a people who are nothing, a people who are the rejected and the despised. Both the Bible and the Holy Quran refer to this people as a dead people. And as I noted earlier from him, wherever there's a resurrection, it had to have been preceded by death. So we are called a dead people. Now the minister continues, and he takes that dead matter and he puts in it a new mind, a new way of thinking. He gives it a new form and a new expression. Behold, I make all things new. End of quote. 1 month and 3 days later, the minister wrote the introductory letter to this course of study. I have said this before, and I want you to think over what I'm saying. Throughout all of these study guides, when I would sit in front of the minister with my little pen and paper, he never had a note. Did you hear me? He never had a note or notes. He never said, don't write anything, I'm just thinking out loud. These divinely guided words, these not only divinely guided, they are divine words from Allah and His Christ. This is why they flow with ease. This is a man whose verbal expression is superior to all of the written expression at this world's level. This is a knowledge that doesn't come from the confines of Satan's world. Brothers and sisters, Minister Farrakhan is inviting me and you to enter now in the fullness of time into the mind of God. He's inviting me and you to undergo a transformation or a complete change in our lives. He's inviting us to take part in the creation of a new civilization that no one, no power will ever break. A civilization where there will be, in the words of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, unlimited progress. Next week, we begin study guide number 1, mixed feelings and controversy. We will go over his editorial letter. Then we will immerse ourselves in that study that we may be immunized against Satan and all of his imps. The Satan within and the Satan without. Because Satan is at war with Allah over you and me. Friday, May 26, 2017, be there. I don't want you to be nervous about becoming a study group coordinator. Brother Shahid Muhammad is one of the best. Brother Student Minister Amin Muhammad, Student Minister Troy Muhammad, Student Minister Khalila, we're Sister Shima. These are our Brother Ibrahim. These are our coordinators thus far in Chicago, and we are looking, this is a recruitment night, by the way. We're recruiting coordinators. Minister Farrakhan wants 1,000 ministers. Ministry is not just rostrum. Frankly, who can deliver the word clearer and better than Minister Louis Farrakhan. What he's looking for us to do, as Brother Shaheed explained, it's time for us to go out, but we can't create a magnetic field to draw our own people in until we go within and master self. We are God's children of the Most High gods. We don't need prophets in this hour, as he writes in this study guide. God has come. And how do you know the difference between a prophet and a God? A prophet can only preach righteousness to the people. He can share with the people God's will for them and share with them God's interest in their affairs. A God changes reality. Minister Farrakhan is in our midst changing reality. And he is an example to you and I of what we can become. So East Coast already did their reading tonight because they're an hour ahead of us. So when this portion of the program ends, they will be done. We thank the East Coast, Eastern Standard Time, for being on. Those of us in the Central region, we have 3 pages left to finish the monumental lecture, Self-Improvement, the Basis for Community Development. And then on the West Coast, I don't know, what are they doing on the West Coast? A pre-record? I'm not sure, but we'll take care of the West Coast. But in any event, I thank all of you for being out here tonight on behalf of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the staff here, the Executive Council, and all those who make Friday night and the recommitment to it possible. We have a few brief announcements, then we're going to go into our final 3 pages of Self-Improvement, the Basis for Community Development, and after that, we're going to be able to go home. Thank you so much, and I'm going to bring back to the rostrum Student Minister Amin Muhammad. And let's give a big round of applause to the cast of the Demo Study Circle. Assalamu alaikum.